For our first On the Road Young Lasallians podcast, we have Michael Hairsine. Michael comes to us from Browning, Montana. He is the Director of Technology and Athletic Director of our San Miguel Middle School, De La Salle Blackfeet. With his busy life as an educator of De La Salle, the only time I could catch him was for an interview during the 4th through 6th grade girls basketball game. I apologize for the background noise throughout the show.
My name is Michael Hairsine. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. Graduate of CBC class of 2007. I've been living out here at De La Salle Blackfeet in Browning for the past 8 years, so I'm in my 9th school year.
Now, you may have just caught Michael saying he graduated from CBC. Just to clarify for all, CBC is Christian Brothers College High School, one of our all-boys high schools in St. Louis, Missouri. Next, Michael will talk about his volunteer experience with De La Salle Blackfeet. Most people may believe that the only volunteers at a Lasallian school are Lasallian volunteers. This is not true. Lasallian schools have had Vista volunteers. At Blackfeet, they've had volunteers that specifically serve on reservations, but Michael's experience is very different. He didn't go through any program at all. He simply just volunteered.
So that's true. I was not a Lasallian volunteer when I came out here. I had visited De La Salle Blackfeet when I was between my sophomore and junior year in high school. With Brother Chuck, we did a mission trip out here in the infancy of the immersion program. We came in the summertime. We put the library, my group put the library where it is now, and someone cataloged it, one of the adults. And I just remember when I was out here, I really just felt drawn to the mission and to what was going on. I was really impressed with the brothers and that they even had people volunteering out here, and that was when I was only 16 at the time. So I guess what really brought me back is that calling. So that, I guess, let me backtrack. So when I was in high school, that really kind of started my transition into changing from my old worldview, my old beliefs about other people and about politics and about the way things are in the world. And that began the transition from what I was brought up with my family into really seeing truly what marginalization is and what poverty really is, and that it's not just an issue that people choose for themselves. It's not something that people let themselves fall into necessarily. It's something that we all need to be concerned with, and there are many different factors at play that really contribute to why this community and other marginalized and impoverished communities are the way they are. So that was my trip in sophomore year, and then I did another mission trip the following summer. And then when I was in college, I kind of did the college thing and dipped away, and then I had grand plans of becoming a lawyer and, finding a beautiful house, beautiful family, the whole, American dream kind of thing. But I decided that I wanted to do some volunteer work initially because I wanted to do something different, but also because, I kind of felt the need to give back. And there was also that thing like, oh, this would be good for me and my career kind of thing. And I originally had planned to come out here just for that year, my first year. But when I got here, it's almost hard to really put into words. It was almost like I slowly gained this sense of peace and this sense of joy and this sense of purpose that I'd really never felt anywhere else, or not even in college, not in anything that I've done. And it really is something that you're called to. You can't really explain it. You can't put it into words. But this is where you're supposed to be. This is where you are called. This is what you're supposed to do. And I have the perspective of being here for several years that a lot of the new people don't. But you really don't get to reap the rewards and benefits of that and what you've done and the impact you've made until you've been here for several years and you see that our graduates have gone on to graduate high school and college. One of my first students is graduating college this year at St. Mary's, Minnesota. So I'll be excited to see where she goes after that. So really it's just that continuation, and even up until maybe a year or two ago, I still was just year by year like, oh, I think I'll do another year. I think I'll do another year. But as slowly as this ministry continues to build and this community continues to become what it is becoming and what we hope that it will become, it's very clear to me that this is what I'm supposed to do. This is where I'm supposed to be. I have a great community. I have a great set of friends. The staff here is amazing. I love my students and I love my job. And even though that some days it's hard and some days it's not always the best day, when I go to sleep at night and I get up the next day, I know that I'm making a difference, and any of those thoughts just erase right away as soon as I walk in the doors the next morning.
So you really feel that you're living your vocation.
Absolutely, and that was one of the things that I really gained at Vega was this talk about career versus vocation, and I've had some of that formation, but really having the Lasallian formations that I've had, and Vega was a huge part of that. Going to Huther and different things like that, it shows you that there is another level above just having a career. That there is this sense of calling or vocation that calls you. Sometimes you don't want to say yes, and as we often say, if I'd have known. If I'd have known where I'd ended up today, would I have said yes 8-9 years ago? And I don't know that the answer would be yes to that question. But that's where God calls you. That's where the world needs you, and that is the nature of vocation. You are called to it, and you just answer the call.
You mentioned Vega, and I'm glad you did. Vega is a formation experience for young professionals who have had no prior formation, so that is considered Buttermer. Lasallian Volunteers, Brothers. What was that experience like for you?
Well, when I went into it, I really didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Yeah.
I was invited, and it seemed like a really great opportunity. I got to talk with some of the people who were running it because they asked for volunteers to do music. So I thought, that'll be a great way to get involved. But I had just come off. It was in July. I had just come off vacation, so I was just got on my plane and didn't really think about it until I got there. But, I remember on my first evening, I was there early because the flights to Montana are not always the easiest to do, as I'm sure you all have learned. So I had to fly in the day before, but in that, night before, I got to talk with some people that I had met before and some new colleagues that I had met. And I just, it's the same thing that you always experience as soon as you walk into your Lasallian ministry. You just feel like you're at home right away. You feel like you're welcome. You feel like you're back with family, even if these people you've never met before. And that was the exact feeling I had that first night. And then as the week went on, just getting to talk to different people, some of whom had led immersion groups out to De La Salle Blackfeet, and just hearing the way that it had impacted their students and them and their formation, it made me it really made me feel that we're not alone out here in our rural corner of America up here. And it really, even enlivened me and gave me more fire for coming back here and starting the school year off on the right foot and doing more to network and to get involved with the greater Lasallian family. So I just think that it's a great opportunity. I would recommend it to anyone. I think it's a great way to meet other Lasallians. It's a great way to really solidify, if you're not sure about what your vocation is, or if you're not sure that, this is it, this is your vocation as a young person, whether you're an LV or whether you're a young teacher who's considering another career, I think Vega is a great way for you to really to dive into that issue and to really see, what is your vocation and why is it you're doing what you're doing. If you know the why of what you do, it's so much easier to do the what. And that's one thing Vega really taught me.
In your answer prior, again, you keep setting me up for my next question. You said, Montana's a little out there in regards to geographical location. What is it like being a young Lasallian that is removed from a major Lasallian hub? What are the challenges, maybe the strengths?
So it's I'll speak to the isolation first. Mm-hmm. The isolation in general can be a little taxing. Obviously, the winters here aren't always the best. Sometimes we get snowed in so bad that all the roads out of town are closed, and you're kind of just hunkered down in your own space. Sometimes it feels isolating also in a Lasallian way, and I think that's not necessarily the fault of us or the fault of anybody else, but just the nature of being 1,000 miles from the nearest ministry. Sometimes we forget that we are part of this larger family, and that was one of the things that Vega really helped me remember, that we are part of this larger family. As far as the strengths, however, I feel like that it almost forces our school community to become a family. So for example, like we went out last night with the staff, the young teachers. We do that on a fairly regular basis, whether it's just some of us in town or whether it's the volunteers as well. But we try to get together fairly often. We talk all the time. We socialize. We do informal peer observations and kind of share best practices and ideas. And I feel like these people aren't just my colleagues; they're also my friends. And I've got to know them and their personal lives, And I think that part is just more fulfilling, because then it makes it a lot easier to come out here. If you're joining a family, or if you're joining a strong community, than if you were just coming out here on your own. And that's what most of us do. We come out here by ourselves. Either we may have met, the LVs might have met each other at their orientation, but they don't necessarily know each other. Or like myself, I didn't really know anyone except Brother Paul, and that was just through communications via Facebook for several years. But once you get here, like I said, it's like coming back to family. You just feel welcome right away. And that sense of community is what I think brings people back. Our teacher turnover has been very good for the last few years. We've had a retention of everyone except one person, I think, for the last 3 years.
Wow. And,
for a place like this, that's pretty special, especially when the public school has a turnover of about 50%, I believe, every year. It's something pretty high. So I think that's what calls people here, and that's one of the strengths we have, and it's what allows us to continue doing what we're doing. I don't know if the people can hear, but we're at a basketball game. So our staff today are working a basketball game. They're not getting paid. They don't have a chance to really say no, but they don't complain. They just do it. They all ask for a job. They all ask for a task, and they all show up here to help and support our kids in their basketball game, and also to help support the school through the fundraising effort that we do by collecting the gate and doing the concessions. And they're here on a Thursday evening, despite the fact that they tomorrow's Friday. They're here working, and they're smiling, and they're happy to be here. So I think that aspect is also a strength, that isolation, because it almost it forces us to act as a family and act together, and we have to get along and help each other out through our hard times and through our good times too.
And even more so, I hear you're going to be neighbors of two of your young Lasallian colleagues.
Yes, I am. I'm moving in next to the Ficaros in a couple weeks, so that'll be really exciting. We actually share a back deck, so I had some patio furniture that I've already put up there, which they're very excited about.
And share a grill, maybe?
Oh, yeah. I think we're going to have lots of young Lasallian events out on our big patio.
Awesome. So I think to be able to recognize and have an appreciation for the Lasallian mission at such a young age in high school is, a really remarkable thing. So what drew you to the mission at that age at Christian Brothers College High School?
What drew me to the mission? So I guess I'll start with my first year there. I went to public school for 8 years, and my family wanted me to go to Catholic high school. I finally said yes, although, to be honest, a little reluctantly. But it worked out that CBC had just moved in St. Louis. They had moved from the city out into closer to like the suburbs where I lived, so that kind of made sense. And I had for other different reasons, I decided that'll work. I think I can do Catholic school. I had been strengthened in my Catholic faith through confirmation, and I kind of was interested in it. But honestly, it was kind of just like, oh, that's a neat thing. It really wasn't a major life-changing decision for me before I went to CBC. But one of the things that really struck me when I got there my first year is that in public 8th grade, you get all these horror stories like, oh, when you get to high school, watch out for the seniors, watch out for the juniors, don't do this, don't do that, stay out of here, don't bother these people, all that kind of stuff. But it was really different in CBC, because I remember, I think on my second or third day, I was lost trying to get to a class, and an older student who I wasn't sure a grade, but I knew he was probably a junior or senior would be my guess. And he asked me, he's like, are you trying to get to class? I was like, oh, yeah, I don't know where I'm going. I'm going to whatever class I was going. And he's like, oh, let me walk you there. I'll show you. And he walked me to my class. And I remember being so dumbfounded and almost thinking, am I about to be, walking into a practical joke?
Yeah.
Am I what's going to go on here? But no, he kind of, showed my hand, introduced himself, sent me on my way, and I went to class. Yeah, mm-hmm. and that was it. And CBC is, I think that's their motto, but it's Men for Tomorrow and Brothers for Life. And that is one thing that they really instilled at us there. That sense of brotherhood, not just with your family, not just with CBC, but with the human race as a whole. We're all our brothers and sisters keepers, and that's one of the things that they really instilled there. And just that whole sense of there were no serious cliques, there was no bullying. Everyone was there to help each other. No matter what grade you were in, no matter what group you were from, you were still associated with each other because you were from CBC. And that really stuck with me, and that's actually what got me into mission trips at first, as I really started to get this feeling, this invitation, this calling, I guess, if you will, into this world. I wasn't quite sure what it was, but I knew that this was home. I knew that was, where I belonged, and that's probably still my stronger alma mater that I have more affection for, rather than Loyola Chicago, which is where I went to college. I still have a stronger affection for CBC, honestly, I think, than I do my university for that exact purpose, for that exact reason, rather. So then that's kind of what, wanted me to give back. And then, as we became older, it was instilled into us as we were juniors and seniors to protect the freshmen and to, help them out and to show a helping hand. And even I remember a couple of times in high school I would, be at a store or be at a, somewhere out in public, and, I'd have like a CBC shirt on, and they'd say, "Oh, are you from CBC?" Like, yeah, I go to CBC. I'm a junior or whatever age I was, and I had several different people tell me like, "Oh, I like those kids from CBC." You can just tell it if it's a CBC boy because they have a different way of acting. They're much more mature. They have a different persona about them, and that kind of stuck with me too. That this Lasallian world, it really does impact you from the inside out, and it really does kind of take over your whole being and really kind of fires you up spiritually. And so I think that experience of those 4 years is probably what brought me back, because I really wasn't all that involved in like mission work in college. I was really focused on career. I was focused on girls and getting good grades and that kind of thing, the whole college life. But when I was graduating and looking for something to do, I'm like, well, I don't want to go to law school. Yeah, that sounds like more school. That's boring. I ended up being a teacher, so we don't know how that worked out. But and then when I remember this brother's mission up here, and I had talked to Brother Paul, who said they needed people. It was just kind of on a whim. It was like another just a calling. Like and I think it was something like the end of July that I signed on, and we started school, our orientation rather, like 2 weeks later. But yeah, if it wasn't for CBC and those 4 years of formation, I probably wouldn't have the same spiritual fire and the same the same belief system or the same goals in life if it weren't for them. And I really attribute all of my vocational work to what I learned from the brothers there at CBC.
What did you learn about being Lasallian your first year at De La Salle Blackfeet? Anything different from being at CBC?
Yes. So the main difference I think is just being exposed into a culture of poverty in a marginalized area. It really showed me that I was really grateful for the education I got at CBC, but it really showed me that, like, if you want to call it, the front lines or the trenches of the brothers' mission, places like this, San Miguel, Chicago, those kind of schools, that's like the trenches. Those are the front lines, because that's what the schools were started to do. And it takes more. I realized it takes more than just being an emergent student. It takes more than wishing well, or it takes more than just all those things are extremely important. Right, but it takes a little bit more than just just a week. It's something that's you have to be doing all the time. It's something you have to be living constantly. You can't be Lasallian for just a week. You can't live the mission for just a month. It has to be. It almost requires you to be a lifelong commitment to Lasallianism. And for me, that's here in the front lines, and for others, that's the generals and the colonels behind us who are supporting us and who are leading us into battle to combat these issues that our world is faced with us. But really, you realize that it's a constant struggle, and it's a constant joy too, that you keep doing those things, and that's what being Lasallian is about. It's not necessarily just about being a part of a school or a part of a group. It's also about living a mission, and that is the mission of St. John Baptist de La Salle, and about trying to combat the poverty and all the other social justice issues that the brothers have been pioneering against for decades now. And I think that's really what struck me my first year, is that I could do more, and I should do more.
Michael, thank you so much for talking to me today, and thank you for your work at De La Salle Blackfeet in Montana.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.